Hello and welcome to Don't Die Before You're Dead. I'm your host, Mary McCartney, and this is where we talk about all things related to living the life we are meant to live. Today, I have a very special guest. This gal I met a few years back and was totally amazed at what she had been able to do with her life. She had met challenges and rose above them and is constantly positive, upbeat, funny, and very enjoyable. And I welcome Debbie Adams all the way from Halifax today. So welcome, Debbie, and thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, I'm honored to be here, Mary.
We had such a delightful time last time we were in person getting together. And of course, we've had some chats along the way. And I know that you are really an expert at finding ways to really enjoy your life, that you've, like I said, you've come above the challenges and, you were on a path. You had a plan that you were making, and all of a sudden life kind of throws you one of those nasty curves, but it didn't bowl you over. Well, maybe for a time. I mean, you are human after all, and maybe for a time, but how did you work through that? What was sort of your strength that enabled you to see beyond the limitations that you were given? And maybe you'd like to share what they were.
Yeah, exactly. I had a great career in the military, as you mentioned, and then I developed this disease called retinitis pigmentosa, which caused me to become legally blind. I have tunnel vision, and it totally disrupted my career and plunged me into a place where I couldn't afford to support myself. I think one of the things that kept me motivated was that I had already had a glimpse at what a good life looked like in those first 10, 11 years. And I even find now when I'm trying to encourage my child to look toward the future, I'll paint her an image, forward pacing, and say, this is what it's going to be like. Let's work toward it. It doesn't mean that there were days when I really didn't want to work this hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, you were human, and you have a daughter, and so you had more responsibility than just yourself, obviously. And so you were able to pass on to her some of those things that you were managing for yourself, so that she too would be able to see that better days were ahead. Did you find at any point in time that you got stalled and you weren't sure where you were going to go? Because I would imagine if your life was set for the military, that it was fairly well planned in a manner of speaking. Not to say that there wasn't some flexibility, but one doesn't usually join the military, I don't think, for short-term. And so you had long-term plans. And so now suddenly things needed to change. How long did it take you to kind of set a new path for yourself? And did you just set one, or have you gone down many forks in the road?
Honestly, my many forks took me 10 years. 10 years.
Okay.
It was not a short journey of reinvention. I went to university because somebody suggested that a legally blind person, I'm a mechanic by trade, so there was no market for legally blind mechanics at that time without a driver's license.
That makes sense.
And so university was an option, and I graduated when I was 45. I really thought maybe I'd become a teacher, but in the public school system, not an adult educator. I didn't really know there was such a thing as adult education. And I hit a wall about probably, 15 years ago now, and I really needed to go and get counseling at that point before I could move forward. So here I am heading into like bankruptcy, and I've also fallen apart emotionally.
Oh dear. Okay. So a double whammy, if you will, in that sense. So you went to university as a mature student, and I think that was one of the things that we connected on, because I did likewise, and realizing that, like you, I was hitting a brick wall and needed to rearrange my life. You mentioned that you were thinking that maybe public school would be your destination at that point. It became adult education, actually, that you're more engaged in now. So tell us a little bit about how that has evolved for you. I mean, I think kudos to you for going and getting counseling. One of the things that I've been just speaking a lot about is that we need to go and find people to support us, whether they be family, friends. I speak a lot about all the self-help books in the library. There's lots of help available, and you actually sought it. So you have to actually take action, don't you?
You got to take action. One of the challenges I was having, I didn't know it at the time until I got, in front of somebody who knew more than I knew about self-help. This is the thing. You can read a lot of books, but there's a time when there is a limit in what you can read. You need somebody else to look at you objectively. My
Okay.
challenge was I was grieving what I had lost. And
Okay.
that grief was acting like an anchor and holding me back. And it was like the
Hmm.
universe was saying, not letting you move forward until you deal with this crap.
Right, right.
So
And grief
after that,
comes,
yeah.
yeah, and grief, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Grief comes in different ways for different reasons, right? And perhaps other people wouldn't have recognized that there was grief involved in your journey.
Hmm. Well, getting a driver's license is a coming of age thing for young adults, of course.
Hmm.
And when you lose your driver's license, I was 37 at the time, I'm 57 now. The impact of that was traumatic, but I had just kind of trivialized it and tried to find a new job
Hmm.
when I had actually lost a piece of my identity and my independence and, you know.
Correct. Yeah. I totally get that, Debbie. When my husband was no longer able to drive, he was very gracious about accepting it. And I know my father was not. And I know that that is a big thing. And usually we experience that with with older people, perhaps more so than those ill. But when my husband was ill, he still and could not drive, he still insisted on renewing his driver's license so they had photo identification. He wanted to hang on to the card. So I totally get that. So it took you some time to work through that. And I think you're absolutely right that books will only take you so far. Again, kudos to you because, it's a hard thing to reach out. And you did that. And now you are on a different path than what you perhaps had thought. So what are you doing right now? And I know you've written a book, so I'm hoping you'll tell us about it.
I've written 3 books now.
Woo, wow.
So
You go, girl.
this is my 10th year in business. And when I
Mm-hmm.
started out in business, what I was doing when I started out is not what I was doing, not what I'm doing now. So on this road to discovery, discovering what it is I'm supposed to be doing, I had to try on a lot of different things to see what fit because I had already set my sights on a military career. I wasn't in the market for something else. The
Mm-hmm.
urgency was to make money so I could support my family. And I really couldn't gain traction early on. So I moved from teaching diversity because I was a woman in trades. And then I moved into income tax, which I still do. Then my tax clients needed business coaching, which I love. And now I'm a teacher. I mean, I'm an online teacher. I make a living at this. So it's pretty impressive. I write all the time, and I'm actually in the process of writing a 4th book, but the book that I'm most prideful about is Money Mindset. I'll change my mind about money. I'll be to succeed as an entrepreneur because veterans have a heart to serve, and military people have a heart to serve, not necessarily focused on that revenue piece. And
Mm-hmm.
that internal shift was the thing that made me be able to coach other people on that journey. So,
Mm-hmm. Well, you'd walked in their shoes, so you knew where they were at in that regard. Mindset is really important. Your focus has been on the finances. You've lived that, and you speak from the point of being an expert because you had, as you said, been on the verge of bankruptcy and been able to walk back from that. So mindset plays a big role. As you know, I'm focusing on wanting people to live while they can, to enjoy their moments, because you are a prime example of how life can shift unexpectedly and take you in whole new directions. Whereas if you had been waiting to do all kinds of things, all of a sudden, that's part perhaps of the grieving process, you've lost the opportunity to do some things, and not just you, but people in general. So I'd really like to encourage people to live in the moment, to not put travel off until they can go to climb Machu Picchu, but perhaps maybe just go visit old friends, go make new friends, but to travel regularly as they can. It's not a huge cost and easier to do. So looking at saying, okay, live today, live now while you can. Now you deal with entrepreneurs, that is your strength. And so you are dealing in mindset with finances. How important do you think mindset is with just day by day living?
oh my heavens. Well, I don't only deal with mindset around finances, I deal with mindset around day-to-day living.
Okay,
It's just that
excellent.
finances happen to be one of those things. And nowhere is this more evident than in COVID, where everybody is extremely limited and we don't like to be controlled and we
Mm-hmm.
can't do what we always wanted to do. And I always draw from that analogy of being prevented to continue in the military when I'm teaching my people that, like you just said, so you can't go to Chile for a
Mm-hmm.
vacation, but you can do something that's equally as joyful and do it well. I have to say that, I'm legally blind. I have mental health issues around dealing with, one disability, and I have a better life than most of the people that are around me. I, a joyful, when we measure it on a joy scale,
Yes.
I bring every minute out of my life. I love it.
Yes. That's why you're always smiling, Debbie. So, uh,
Yeah.
so how did you get to be like that? Because were you born like that, or have you learned how to be like that, or is it the mindset, a decision you made? How did you get where you are, in spite
A
of where
bit
you've
of
been?
a bit of a combination. I grew up in a bit of a chaotic household. My mother had traumatic brain injury when I was 12. And so in order to survive in that house, she had to develop certain kind of skills. I'm an optimist with a propensity to realism, of course. And I don't do well when I'm down. I just don't do well. But I'm also a person who makes up my mind that I'm going to do something, and then I just do it, and I don't listen to what other people say. It's training. It's, over time. I've done this 1,000 times. So,
Hmm. Have people in your life questioned your decisions and thought maybe you were a little off the wall with some of your forward thinking?
oh, absolutely. I'm off the wall. I am off the wall. I'm I'm off the wall and out of the box. But those people who are holding me back are no longer in my life. What's happening now is people are coming alongside to say, we see that you have a certain, joie de vivre. How did you get that?
Yes, yes,
I want that,
yes,
right?
yes. I I think it is what makes the challenges easier to bear. Not to a lesser degree. As you know, I had to look after my hubby for
Oh,
3 years before he passed. 24/7 care. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But one of the joys that we had in through that time was recognizing that we had, in spite of all the other people telling us we should never have bought a sailboat because we didn't know how to sail, but we bought one and we learned and we traveled and we didn't go great distances, but we shared one another's company immensely through that time. And so the memories are what sustain me as I move forward into different areas of my life. So, what was the best advice that you got? If some people are telling you that, hey, that's kind of a crazy idea, what was some of the best advice that you got?
um, I didn't reach outside myself for counsel often. I found it inside myself. And I developed this little technique of asking, how can I do this? So, first of all, I want to just acknowledge that you and I met in 2015, and it just came back to me that you and I connected because we have the same energy. We have that same joy
Yes,
for living
yes,
it, right? The
I think so.
sailboat
Yes.
story is evidence of that. But now, even now, like yesterday, I had this little moment where I had a dip, and then I very quickly catch myself and I ask your guides or the universe or whatever it is that you have out there that you need to ask, how can I accomplish this? How can I make this different? How can I ensure that I have more connection in my life, or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
That piece of wisdom, I teach it to everybody that I come in contact with, so they can quickly change their mind
Mm-hmm.
and not go down that pity, that little hole of pity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like to talk about is it's okay to sit on the pity pot for a while, but after a while your legs will go numb, so you better get up and move. So it's okay to feel that way for a while. And like you, Debbie, I don't manage myself well when I'm not feeling joyful, optimistic, and happy.
Right?
I can't stand myself. Why would I subject others to that? So yes, we are kind of the same cloth in that regard. And I think that is pretty much what helps us is to choose that which way we'd like to be.
Yes.
Part of one of the presentations I did a couple of weeks ago was about our choices. So when we look back, especially, some of the choices we made perhaps weren't the best, and some of the choices brought us to where we are today. So tell us a little bit about what it is you are doing today in your working with entrepreneurs, your adult education, your writing books. Tell us about your other books. Share with us what your life looks like today.
Well, I mostly work with entrepreneurs because I needed a focus. But when I'm working with them, I'm teaching them about what's possible. So what I find is that, and I find it a lot more in women than in men, is that we have to wait until all the ducks are lined up and somebody gives us permission. And I'm teaching people to not worry about the ducks. When they see you running away, they'll be running to catch up to you. And nobody needs to tell you that it's okay. And just to circle back to what you said about failure, I think that I've been blessed to have failed. I didn't just come close to bankruptcy. I went bankrupt.
Okay.
And I have failed miserably all along. But the School of Hard Knocks, I figured out not everybody gets in there, because the only way to graduate is to extract the lesson. So being the failure is not fearful. What's fearful is not living. I don't care about failing. That's going to happen anyway.
Well, when you mix failure with risk, so I think perhaps maybe you would agree with this, that to me, people that are hanging out in their comfort zone are really in a prison of their own making. And so you have stepped out, you've taken risks, obviously you've extracted your lessons. Some people don't, though. They stay stuck. What advice would you give people who are afraid to risk because they've failed or been sadly disappointed, or they're just afraid to take the leap, the risk? What advice would you give them?
Well, I wouldn't probably give anyone advice unless they ask for it, because if somebody is stuck and they're in that place, they're not people that I'd work with, because they're never going to use any of the advice that I would give them. But if somebody came to me and said, I know I'm stuck, I know I'm not moving forward, I'm sick and tired of this life, what can you show me how to do? That I would just encourage that step of asking, because I found out early on in business that reaching in and trying to drag people out because I had done it isn't going to work in life. You need to catch the people who are like me, hungry for change but don't know where to go.
Yes.
So, if somebody is listening to this podcast and they're saying, that's me, I'm hungry for change, I don't have a clue where to go. Well, both of us have been around this stuff, the change management, for some time. And if somebody reaches out and wants a little bit of wisdom, we're generous. So my piece of advice would be, reach out to the people you see that are doing it. Even if you think, oh, they'll never talk to me because they're too successful. Not true. We love talking to people who are just beginning. So that's the advice. Reach out even if you think that they'll never respond.
So if someone was reaching out to you, Debbie, how would they find you?
Well, they can find me on my website at www.peoplecanbiz.ca, and you can email me from there.
Okay, peoplecanbiz, biz.com. Excellent. Well, anyone listening, I hope if all the hairs on the back of your neck and you just all got bristly there thinking, wow, I could really relate to this woman, because some people don't want to share their story. They think perhaps maybe it's indicative of who they are, and they take ownership of it to heart, saying, I never can, or I don't want to tell anybody because they will think less of me. Is it hard for some of your clients that you work with to share their stories? You say they're hungry and they're ready to come. You don't want to pull anything out of them that they're not willing to share. But has it been your experience that some people are a little hesitant to share?
Yes, it has. And I think what really helps with me is that I was a perfectionist. So you can imagine, being a perfectionist, you worry about what other people might think of you. And between perfection and here, and I'm absolutely imperfect now, and I accept every bit of it. I've had bankruptcy, marriage failed, and I was charged with intellectual dishonesty, which is a fancy way of saying cheating, at law school.
Oh my.
So I don't force people to tell me anything they don't want to tell me, but I
Hmm.
have enough in my closet that when I tell it, they feel like, oh, I'm not as bad as she is.
Well, that like been down many roads myself, and I tell people about my two practice marriages, and then I met the good guy. So
Right.
I mean, we have learned a lot, and the fact I think that we can still enjoy life speaks volumes. And I know for a fact that you are giving abundantly, that you want people to understand that life is here, it's a gift, and we
Mhm.
should and I'm not really a fan of that word should, but people can make a
People
better
can.
life.
That's my business. People can do amazing things when they put their mind to it.
Yes.
But they have to put their mind to it, and then they have to get their ass in gear and get to work at it, right?
Yes.
But I would say that the message that I would leave is that that option is there for everybody. That option is there for everybody, not just the privileged. I know, and you know, because we didn't start out as privileged people.
Yeah.
We just start out, with the courage of the truly desperate, and the
I
doors
like that
open.
phrase, the truly desperate. Yes, I've lived there, right on the edge. That's right. And so open to everyone. And is it time limited? Like, what if you're like, you went to school, you were what, did you say 37?
I graduated when I was 45.
Okay, well, I went to school when I was 40, so we're
Yeah.
like-minded in that regard. Do some people sit back and say it's too late for them?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, they do. But when I was at university, Mary, I don't know who the oldest person was when you graduated, but in my class, she was 72.
Oh, outstanding.
72. Her husband had died. She was a stay-at-home mom. And when he died, she got a little chunk of change and said, I'm going to school.
Oh,
And
good
I
for her.
always remember that. So no, it's not time tested. My mentor in the income tax world is he's had vocal cord paralysis. He's in a wheelchair. One of the most inspiring accountants, relocations. No, we put limits on ourselves. It's not our ability to do or move. I'll still be working if I have to roll around the floor. It's what's up here. It's what you
Yeah,
believe. So if you
yeah.
believe that's not possible for me, in all likelihood, you're right.
Well, who was it? Henry Ford that said that. If you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I think we understand, you and I, perhaps, that the mind is beyond understanding. That there
It,
is more there going on upstairs than we even realize. That if we would just try and exert some of that or pull it out and to use it, that it's far reaching. Now you are a lifelong learner. So
yes.
your first book, which I read, which was terrific, Money Mindset. What are the others that you've written, and will you share what you're working on for the last one or the next one?
Yes,
I won't say
yes.
last. I won't say last. I know you too well.
Dreaming Big, Being Bold was an anthology. I just contributed a chapter, and it was all stories of people that had reinvented themselves. It's an excellent read and a series. It's on Amazon. And I wrote a book called Single Again, Now What, which
Mm.
talked about online dating. And I did that as a way to make money. Wrote the book in 1 week, sold 500 copies, and had a little bit of cash to put into my business. So I was strategic about that.
Outstanding.
In September, I'm accepted. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. I may be accepted. I'll know
No,
this
think
week.
positive.
Yeah, into a Masters of Education Leadership program at Dalhousie University. And I'm working on something around my thesis, which is about the education of at-risk adults. So
Mm.
I'm working on a piece now that's more serious, based on my own life experience, coming from a background where I'm the first generation high school and the only one in my family that finished. And to be able to get to here, there's a lot of lessons in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like extracting those lessons and sharing them with people who are wondering how to do it for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, our own personal experiences really become the best teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a number of people, I think, and I keep saying that because there's lots of us in the boomer age that are moving on that really have a wealth of knowledge and experience to share and could easily become someone's mentor or could step into the volunteer world. Would you agree with me that we need them to be more engaged with us?
We do, absolutely, because there's a ton of information that needs to be transferred to the next generation. And if people disengaged, well, I suppose, we can't tell anybody what they should do. So it's unfortunate for the people who decide not to remain engaged. That's their choice. They may want to just sit in the forest and live in a tiny home but for the people who want to, and I'm always cautious, and I always stress this, like when I talk to a group of people, I'm always only talking to the third of the people who are going to take action.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things I have never done well, and nobody's been able to do well with me, is convince me to do something that I haven't already bought into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that if I know that I know the demographic that listens to your podcast, and if they're listening, in all likelihood, we can qualify them as people that may be interested in doing something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of opportunities. I show people what they can monetize because most of the people that I meet need to make a few extra bucks. So I say, let's look at your skills and what can we put a price tag on, and here's how you sell it. Not everybody's in that place. Maybe some people have enough and they just want to give back. And that's where social enterprises, those types of places, would love to have them on board.
Mm-hmm.
Only if they want to, but if they want to be there.
Right. You've mentioned, obviously, we're in this pandemic situation, and I've just been blown away with the number of people who have just pulled themselves together, walked out into the world to be of service, regardless of background, experience, know how. They have just said, here I am. And I think that's an amazing thing to do. And I listen to your words, and I know how strongly you feel about wanting to serve those who want to be served. And I look and I say, gee, I'd really like to flip the switch on some and say, come on out, come play, come be part of us again, because we miss you. We miss your being here. We miss what you offered us all those years. And so part of my message is really wanting to not drag anybody kicking and screaming backwards like through a knothole or anything, but just to encourage them to have faith in themselves and to remember that they're meaningful. So you say you're not stepping forward into the retirement world too soon.
No.
You say you're going to be rolling on the floor and still working. Why is that so? Like, what prompts you to say that right here now?
Um, well, first, I'm in the intellectual information, or intellectual property. I'm selling knowledge, so
Right.
physical limitations will not impact that. If I was still a
Mm-hmm.
mechanic, I might have to say my body will fall apart and I won't be able to do it anymore. I love engaging and stimulating conversations like this. I mean, I just get fun. It'll make my day. I mean, I'll get energy from that for 5 hours, right?
Oh,
Thinking about
excellent.
what you're saying. So, um, so I like being able to show people what's possible. And, that's part of what I do. It isn't about, nowhere will you hear me say, oh, it's about the money, but I'm learning now how to invest money. That's not something that I've ever really had to learn, because I've always been able to, no, I've always had to know how to stretch money. So I'm the best money stretcher around.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm going to learn how to invest money. And this has taken me into a whole new group of people, and,
Mm-hmm.
and women in particular, who are fascinated by this. And if you're fascinated by investing money, then you're fascinated by making money. And let me tell you what we can do with money, Mary, is give it away. Give
Yes.
it away. Like,
Uh-huh.
there's nothing when somebody reaches out and says, Debbie, can you sponsor this? And I say, yeah, no worries. It isn't because they're going to splash the name of my business all over the place. It's because I've never been in that position. I've never been in a position where I can say, yes, yes, I'm going to give it to you. My daughter laughs at me when I say to her, we're going to go looking for a place to give this month, because I have incorporated giving into I love giving, not just knowledge, but I like giving money. And that's inspiring. I can't
Yes.
see me ever giving up the stuff that I love.
Wow. That's incredible, Debbie, because it is a key motivating factor, because you can't give if you don't have. So it spurs you on to be creative. Like you have to be one of the most creative people I know. And I like how you said that you're dealing in intellectual property. We we have that bent in us, and we can choose how we want to use it, right? As you know, I go out and I do training and I'm speaking, but when I was caring for my husband, I did all kinds of knitting because I was home with him. Am I ever going to make a lifetime income of sitting at home knitting? No. Would I want to? No. But to have things finished to be able to give, which isn't
Oh,
money, but it's something that I've been able to create. And there's nothing, I believe that you can't really outgive anybody. Like you just, what you get back is like tenfold, maybe more, but you can't outgive. So anybody listening who thinks that maybe heading out into the world rather than staying home and being restless or maybe bored, could look at, in ways that they could give. So you go out looking for opportunities to give. What are
I
some
do.
of your favorite ways of being able to give and to help others?
Well, I'm doing a little project right now that's very exciting, and that is I'm going to teach young gals between the ages of 9 and 11 how to communicate, because I
Oh,
think
excellent.
there's a correlation between being able to communicate and high self-esteem. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that young girls need this before puberty. It's a bit of a theory, so I'm doing a pilot with 6 girls. It's going to be starting very soon, and that's going to be a free thing. And what I'm hoping is that I'm going to develop that piece of my business into social enterprise and always give that. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
employ somebody to give somebody who has a deeper connection with that age group, and that's going to be my little legacy piece that I'm going to build in my business. Um, and then when it comes to you know, donating and supporting, and I'm helping somebody who's in school right now. And anyway, don't need to talk about all that stuff,
No,
but
I know you're very very modest, very humble, and I appreciate you being as open as you are, because a lot of people won't share those things, because you mentioned it earlier. We tend as a people, I guess, to be fearful of what other people think of us. And for some, that's a hard mantle to throw off. I know I had some difficulty with it, and when I decided to go to school, I had one friend only that thought it was a good idea. Everyone else thought I was crazy with single parenting, 4 kids to raise, and they thought I'd lost my mind. And yet the doors that it opened ever since has been incredible. I don't know where I would have been. And so my thought is, I want to be able to sit on my rocking chair with my family, my friends, whatever, and just be content. I think that's a word we don't hear much about, because we're so busy on that hamster wheel. Get up, go to work, come home, go to bed, get up, go to work, come home, go to bed, that sort of drivenness. I would like to be the person that is very content, that I've lived, made mistakes. Like you, I'm far from perfect, but I can laugh at some of them. Some of them still hurt. Some of them you pay for a long time. I quit school without graduating high school, and basically got married, had a fight with my mom. So when I graduated, it took me 9 years to pay off my student loans, whereas if I persevered when I was younger, my parents would have paid for all of that. So some of them have a sting, but some of them have long lasting lessons to learn that to share with others. So when I was teaching students, you could share that with them. So how are you promoting your social enterprise with these young girls? I think that's a phenomenal enterprise, because I know as a high school teacher, we expect students to present, to do oral presentations, but there's very little room
Mm.
in the curriculum to teach them how to do that. So the fact that you are embracing that age group and helping them to move forward in that areas, because those that can communicate will be at the head of the line for future endeavors that they're interested in.
Hands down. Um, First of all, I want to say wisdom has a sting. And you said some of those lessons had a sting. Wisdom has a sting. You're not going to get wisdom if you do the linear, do
Yeah.
stuff the way people expect you to do. But right now I'm promoting a pilot. So I have, as soon as I posted on my Facebook that I'm thinking about doing this, I had 10 parents come out of the woodwork saying, my daughter would do it. I would encourage her to be in it. So it's going to be easy. The pilot is going to be mostly extracting, am I on point with the learning objectives? Is this really what they need? What do they need to talk about? Who do I need to bring in as little guest speakers to inspire them? Yada, yada. So that's going to be the first piece, is to develop that and then get my head around what else do I need to do to make it illegal and incorporated part of my business, so it's not just thrown together. I will say, I just want to talk about communication for a second. So my biggest hindrance when I started out in entrepreneurship, when it became obvious that nobody was going to hire me and I was, at the end of my rope, people say tie a knot and hang on, but they never tell you what that looks like, right? When you're exhausted and weak and worn down by life and depressed, and they want you to tie a knot, it's like, where am I getting the energy to tie a knot?
Exactly.
For me, my knot was Toastmasters, and I always like to give them a plug whenever I can, because my problem was I had a lot of knowledge in here, and I was not a very good communicator in a public setting. Now, I could sit down one-on-one and have a decent conversation. I mean, I've been given advice, writing letters, advocating since I was a child because of where I came from and where I've been. But I could not, like, 10 years ago, if somebody had said, Debbie, one day you'll stand in front of 600 people and tell them what you think about everything, I would have said that they were, they'd struck their heads somewhere. So Toastmasters gave me the mechanism, although I didn't stay with them. It helped me find my voice, and my voice to be able to be more impactful in a large group. So I saw the power, and I keep thinking, I was, and you're a teacher in school. I would have been the student that was unremarkable. If you can imagine, unremarkable. They may not even remember me if I go back. And this is our 40th anniversary this year. But I'm a remarkable adult. People remember me.
Yes, you are
And
memorable.
it's because of my communication. So I want to teach people how to do that, because that is one asset that can open a lot of doors, as you mentioned. It's
Well,
amazing.
what are we without communication?
Right?
We bonded, we met, we engaged, and we continue, though somewhat limited through distance, because of our ability to communicate with one another.
Right.
What do we do with all the knowledge in our head and all the talent and skill that we have if it can't get out of our bodies? And
it's of no use.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're meant to be of use, to have purpose here. We're just about out of time here, Debbie, but I need to ask you, what do you see for yourself going forward? What is, you did this Dream Big, Being Bold, told your story, fantastic. I'm aware of the series. It is remarkable, and you are remarkable. That's why you're part of that series. What is Debbie Adams going to be doing moving forward? What do you see on your horizon?
Honestly, I want to contribute to the there's a lot of knowledge in the world now. You can go and get all kinds of opinions on the internet, but the knowledge that has been supported by scientific research, I still respect as the highest form of knowledge, because they've tested the hypotheses, right? It's my dream to contribute. It's my dream to be the person that they say, when I read that article about Debbie Adams, she said this, and that's what I want to do. I want to take what I think I know and put it into something that's tested, a thesis that's tested. So the master's program for September is, I'm 57. Who knows if I'll pull that off, but I am going to begin, and I could care less what other people think about me. And I hope that will lead to a PhD.
Now you're talking master's in education, focusing on leadership. Did I pick up on that?
Master's, it's a master's in business with a focus on leadership.
Oh.
I went to see if I got accepted last year into the master's in entrepreneurship, and it's a bit of a cross section between education and entrepreneurship. So I know you have to go, but we could talk all day. I'm not even going to talk about it. Thank you for asking.
Well, no, I'm just fascinated, Debbie, because you are a prime example of the people I want to speak with, to say, you know, like, the world's our oyster. I mean, the cliches are there, but they're meaningless unless we act on them. You've already alluded to that. Without action, nothing happens. We both know that. And you are a woman of action. And I think what I admire the most, Debbie, is that you are a woman that shares that action. You are not just motivated to put yourself in gear and keep motoring down the road, but you have chosen to reach out to other people who are in different circumstances, not just necessarily financially challenged, but in other ways that you can lift them up and take them on the journey with you. And I feel blessed to know you. I've really enjoyed our conversations, especially today's. And thank you for taking your very busy time. Now, one more time, where can people find you? What's your website?
www.peoplecanbiz.com.
Excellent. Well, I hope people will reach out to you because you have so much to share. Thank you for joining us. And again, I'm Mary McCartney, and this has been Don't Die Before You're Dead. Until next time, dare to live the life you were meant to live.